my lovelies, and welcome to yet another episode of the Fluffenhammer. Once again, you'll notice no cold open, I'm afraid. No cold open, because I'm not very good at them, and Adam is still in absentia. He's still somewhere in the warp, still wandering the webway, doing his own esoteric, weird, occult stuff. He'll be back when his experiments are finished. He'll be back. Probably hauling something awful after him, some obscene Lovecraftian elder god thing that he's cobbled together or created. He will be back. Until then, I'm here with our friend Andy. Andy, hi. How you doing?
Hello. Yes, I'm good, thank you. If you want a cold open, just open your door and step outside for a bit. There you go.
That'll do it. Considering that we're in the midst of November here in the UK, that will do it,
Oh, yes.
Although it's not as cold as it should be,
No.
It's
been quite mild, which is nice.
I relish the cold months. I absolutely do. I hate the summer. I hate the sun. I hate the light. I really do. And that's not just some sort of, it's not some sort of contrivance because I'm a horror writer and all of that. No, I genuinely, sincerely have always hated the light and the warmth and the summer. Hate it. Love autumn, love winter. But I feel a little bit cheated over the last couple of years because we haven't really had a proper winter, with frosts and with snow and the like.
No, it's true. I'm not entirely displeased with that because being a car driver and having a very long driveway, like having my driveway filled with snow can take like 2 to 3 hours to clear if I want to clear it properly. So
right.
no snow is not a bad thing for me.
Yeah. No, I've always enjoyed like walking in it. When it settles and it's really deep. I love.
You don't like walking in slush.
Slush is a pain in the arse, and when it freezes over and you get that wonderful sort of crystalline surface that everyone falls on their arse on.
Oh yes, yep.
That's problematic. But when it's newly settled and it's unspoiled, walking in the evening, certainly around where I live, because there's lots of country lanes around here. So just walking down them where there's no light, there's nothing. There's just trees, banks of earth, the sounds of nature and whatnot, and snow is the best thing. The best thing. I say it's the best thing, but actually I think the best thing is really, 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 really good rumour mongering and whatnot from Games Workshop, quite frankly. I'm getting very jittery and excited by stuff at the moment. I can tell you.
That was a good way to pull it back.
That was I thought I'd rein it in before we went off.
That was great.
Too far. I thought I'd rein it in before we went off too far. Off-piste, as it were. But anyway, before we start discussing what's been going on lately, are you doing anything hobby-wise? I saw a couple of bits and pieces on Defluff recently.
Yeah, I've actually been painting up my Necrons finally.
Necrons!
I've been giving myself minor mediocre goals for the day. So it's like day 1, spray things black. Day 2, spray things metal. Day 3, spray the white onto the faces of the Necrons. So I'm giving myself very not easy, but within the time restraints I have, goals to do. I call them mediocre goals because I think most people on the Fluffenhammer page could get them done far faster and easier than I could. But it's nice to get the Necrons finally getting somewhere. And I'm almost done painting the really old ones, but I decided to paint some of the newer models.
Yeah.
The newer models are a lot more interesting to paint.
Yeah.
A lot more interesting to paint.
That's generally true across like the board. It's not just Necrons, it's everything. Everything, especially
painting the older ones. Don't get me wrong, but I was getting really tired, getting really bored of painting them, especially painting the guns. So I was like, all right.
So there's another one of these again. Yeah.
The guns. Like everybody told me, you won't enjoy painting the guns. I was like, they're just guns. Whatever. And then I'm painting the guns, and I'm like, okay, now I see.
I get it now.
Yeah.
I always felt sorry for the poor old Space Marine players, like the loyalist Space Marine players back in the day. Because they were, when the models were basically all the same, and they were all sort of like flat, big surfaces. So
Which ones are you talking about? Are you talking about the 3 or 4 piece Space Marine?
Yeah. Sort of really anything before, I would say, sort of like 5th edition, really.
Oh, okay.
It's kind of all the same, isn't it? Unless you go for one of the really divergent chapters like the Space Wolves or whatever, it's pretty much all the same. And it's just doing the same paint scheme over and over again on flat surfaces, just the same banding as Fortunately, they've really gone to town trying to improve that element, so now they're much more dynamic. They've got much more in the way of little details that pop and make them more interesting, make them more fun to paint.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and the Necrons are very good, and I know our friend Mr. Gruff has had some Necrons to paint himself at the moment, which is quite nice.
Excellent. Oh, he's done it. He's got in. Yes.
Yes. Yeah, he's got a few.
Oh no!
I think he's only just painted one Necron warrior so far.
Oh
but it looks like he's enjoying himself.
Hey, it's done now, isn't it? If anything was going to get you in, Adam, it would have been the Necrons, wouldn't it? It would have been the Necrons. It's a natural transition. He's such an undead player in AOS. It's a natural transition into the Necrons, and now is like the best time to be playing those guys. That codex, man.
Yeah, it's good. It's a good one.
It's
the only things we're missing. What are we missing from the list? Is it only the flayed ones that we don't have to buy at the moment?
I think that's it. Yeah, I think that's it. But I'm sure they'll be released in short order.
Yeah. What were we thinking? We were thinking it was going to have something to do with the skirmish future 40k game.
Yes, yeah, I imagine because they released that video, didn't they, where the Necron, like the flayed ones, featured quite prominently. So
that's right, yeah.
I'm assuming they'll be released to coincide with that. But God, that army, and the friggin' miniatures, man, I can't even think about it. Because I'd buy the Void Dragon or something like that, and that would be the end, wouldn't it?
I thought you were still planning to get a Void Dragon to make him Slaaneshi or something.
I would love to do it. I mean, I think what I would do with him is make him Zeechan. I'd make him a Demon Prince for my Thousand Sons or something like that. He's got a very sort of Zeech air about him.
Isn't he a bit smooth for Zeech?
Not really. I mean, Zeech is one of those. I mean, if you look at, for example, if you look at the Disciples of Zeech in AOS, the Kyric Acolytes, the cultists, they have this thing whereby they're all these very buff, very sublimely sculpted men, yeah? And the reason for that is they are, in their waking lives, they are just like normal people. They're scribes, they're servants, they're politicians. They could be very old or very young, they could be decrepit, but they actively change their forms when they go through this particular process, when they become unveiled into the cult. And once they've done that, once they've survived that process, they can shift at will between the Kyric Acolyte form, which is idealized, it's really beautiful, or their original form, to continue engaging in like normal society. It's cool, isn't it? It's really fun.
Yeah,
it's a lovely way of distinguishing like Zeech cultists from all the other chaos elements out there. Really, really lovely. So I think with a bit of work, it could fit quite well. You'd need to make it maybe a little bit more mutated, just to signal the fact that it is Zeechan, but a good paint scheme, and it'd be fine. It'd work really well.
Yeah, slap a beak on him. Boom.
Yeah, some fire, some flame, some eyes maybe. A tome of some description in his hand or whatever. And he'd be well aware. I mean, I've been pondering myself how to make a Zeech Demon Prince using, that endless spell from AOS that's a big burning book with eyes festooned on it.
Oh yeah. Which one did that come with? Which one was it a Chaos one originally? No.
The tome? Yeah. It's the Disciples of Zeech endless spell.
Right, okay.
I want to use that as the head of a demon prince for my Thousand Sons, because I think it would look really cool, like a flaming book with eyes for a head. I think it's so weird.
You say that, and I can't help but think of the helmet of avarice from Dark Souls, the big the big mimic chest.
Well, that's
gives me the same idea.
Kind of the same idea, yeah. Kind of going. I think since they're very clearly drawing inspiration from Dark Souls and Bloodborne, and from lots of From Software studios. Why not? Let's go for it, But yeah, I mean, I just bought the Space Wolf Codex, the supplement.
It's Space Wolves.
I know, right. I know it was all sort of like Prosperine loyalty aside, it's a really damn good codex. I wanted to see really how how the supplemental codexes are going to work out. So what's their format? How do they work and how do they function? It's really interesting because you can
How so?
well, you can make your bog standard Space Wolf chapter. You can make your Space Wolf army, in which instance you use the main Space Marine book and all the stuff in the supplement, and that's it. However, you can also make a Space Wolf successor chapter, in which instance there's a whole page dedicated to this. You can make your successor chapter from the successor chapter traits in the main Space Marine Codex, but you can then apply different elements from the Space Wolf Codex. So it's this wonderful sort of intermingling of the two, and the options for entirely unique armies now is insane. I wouldn't even want to calculate it, because it would be, the number of different combinations would be huge. It's a way of making successor chapters very distinct from their parent chapters.
That's really cool.
It's great, isn't it? What's also retaining like the quality of their parent chapters.
Would you say it's similar to the idea that the Necron book kind of plays down with the dynasties?
It's very like that. Yeah. So what you've got basically in the main Space Marine Codex, you've got exactly the same system as the dynasties. So you've got your traits for your established chapters, which are established and they remain the same throughout. So you've got a chapter trait for the Space Wolves, for the Ultramarines, for the Dark Angels, and they are the same throughout. But if you want to make a successor chapter, then there's this whole list of universal chapter traits, and you just cobble together two. In the same way, in the Necron Codex, you can make your own dynasties by cobbling together two traits, yeah? You do exactly that. But on top of that, with the supplemental codexes, you do that, and then you take options from the supplemental codex as well, if you want to create a successor chapter. So the stuff like... It's really clever. So you use the baseline Space Marine Codex, then you can do stuff like you can access the Space Wolf psychic powers, for example. You can access the Space Wolf relics. You can access the Space Wolf stratagems and whatnot. It's really, really clever. And not only that, but the Space Wolves, their power level is mad. The stuff you can do with that codex is insane. So I imagine that this is the new level now. This is like the new power level. Compared to like the 8th edition codices, it seems well overpowered. It seems, so does the Necron Codex, so does the baseline Space Marine Codex. So I imagine this is going to be the new power level going forward, and all of the, hopefully, fingers crossed, all of the other codices come up to the same standard,
I can't imagine they wouldn't. Like, from what I remember of the AOS ones, they kept going up in quality rather than even plateaued, as far as I remember, at least.
Yeah, it's pretty much right, yes.
The only thing I think will, not will be a problem, but could be a problem, is that new features will be added to the future codexes that will then make the ones like the Necrons look simplistic by comparison. Like the Nighthorns obviously don't have any terrain pieces for them to buff them up, and obviously at this point I think pretty much all of the new AOS ones do. I remember after that, like the Flesh Eater Courts and all had at least one building to help buff their units up. The Fane of Slaanesh, all that stuff. Absolutely. That is a worry, but it looks like they are really working hard to level that playing field, doesn't it? So like obviously we had the Death Guard Codex is imminent. And we had the revelation of their terrain piece recently, which is a lovely thing. It's a beautifully grotesque, horrible, disgusting, fleshy forge of some description, which looks great. It looks absolutely wonderful. I mean, if as and when they ever do a sort of Emperor's Children Codex, it'll be very easy because they can just use the Fane of Slaanesh. It'll be fine. Yeah, I don't think they would. I think they'd want to make an extra thing for them, but you might be right. You might be right where they just go, there you go.
It's fine.
It's already there, whatever.
It's Slaanesh enough to work,
Yeah.
Or maybe that'll be for like the new Codex Demons, for the Slaaneshi Demons, maybe. Who knows? Depending on, this is a question, really. How are they going to do Demons and Chaos in the new edition? Because AOS has got a very different way of representing demons. There's no dedicated Demons book.
No, because the world's so malleable with Chaos energies, it's just, whatever. Everyone's could be anything. It doesn't need to be a huge deal anymore.
No.
Maybe with the 40k stuff, it might be. Will they do a separate book, or will they try and just homogenize it all? Well, maybe not homogenize, but at least slap them all together.
I think what would make more sense, rather than doing a separate demons book, is to go down the AOS route. So have like your dedicated Nurgle book, which has your Death Guard, but also all of your Nurgle demons as well. That would make enormous sense to me. Because it means that you can mix and match. It means that you can, but there's none of this, like, there's always been this problem in 8th Ed with Chaos where people have been uncertain as to, like, so Chaos Demons are always traditionally summoned by Chaos Space Marines, right? So if I include Chaos Demons in my Chaos Space Marines detachment, does that mean then it undermines some of the universal special rules that only can be accessed if the detachment is taken exclusively from this codex or from that codex? Do you know what I mean? Or if they have this keyword or that keyword. It's a problem. It's always been a problem for Chaos armies. It's a problem in the Thousand Suns Codex as well. So what Zeechant demons can you take? And how do they interact with the universal keywords when it comes to determining army-wide special rules or detachment special rules and whatnot? Do I have to pay command points for another detachment to put my demons in? And if so, that's a little unfair. Really, because it puts us on the back foot immediately, despite the fact that this is how the armies are. They've always had demons in them. So incorporating them just into their own parent codices makes sense.
I guess the Death God book will be the best indicator for what they're going to do, because if they don't have any demons in, then that kind of throws our idea that we've got here right out the window. Right. If it does have demons in, boom. Or, I mean, it gives us an idea going forward.
Don't get me wrong, there probably will be a dedicated demons book because they are so established as an army. You know, people do collect Chaos Demon armies in 40k. So there probably will be a dedicated demons book at some point. They either they should include them in their god-specific books, or rather than doing that, they should perhaps introduce a system whereby the books work together more synchronously.
Yeah.
So there are no penalties, for example, for including Nurgle demons in a Death Guard army. There are no penalties for including Khornate demons in a World Eaters army, and so on and so forth. And there's even like synchronicity between them, because there should be synchronicity between them. Nurgle demons in a Death Guard army would necessarily be more powerful than Nurgle demons in just a general Chaos Demons army, because they're being fed by the passions and the belief of the Death Guard, yeah?
Yeah, that makes sense.
So let's see how it goes. I mean, the way they could do it very easily is via the Demon Princes and Mortarion. So the Demon Princes are half in one world and half in another. They are legitimately Chaos Demons, but they're raised from mortal origins. So maybe if you include a Demon Prince in your army, it alters the keyword system a little bit, yeah? So they can include demonic units and mortal units in a manner that doesn't prohibit either one. Yeah, easy peasy. That's an easy mechanism for doing it.
I suppose as well, by going by that kind of logic, using like a demon, the Primarchs is almost like a bridge to connect the two. You could maybe do that on a lesser extent with sorcerers.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. That would work very, very, very well. And it doesn't make any sense anyway for, like, Demon Primarchs and Demon Princes not to have demons in their armies. Because we know in the background these guys come out. I mean, the Demon Primarchs are the highest demon lords in the realm of chaos. They preside over every other circle of demons in their god's purview, you know. So they're the highest sons of the chaos gods, so it makes sense for them to be able to draw on demonic legions as well. I mean, that's another thing they should really think about doing, like making the Chaos Primarch special characters in whatever Chaos Demon book comes along.
That'd be all right, yeah.
Because they should be.
Yeah.
They just should be. It makes enormous sense. But we'll see. We'll see what they do. I mean, I'm given a lot of hope. I mean, especially, I mean, we all know there was a show yesterday, and one of the, I mean, we'll get on to talking about it specifically soon, but one of the things they were talking about on the live show, which really gave me hope, was that they actually positively identified some of the issues that people had flagged up with the 8th edition codexes, and talked about how they'd taken those problems on board and how they were going to fix them.
What were those problems for people that might not be aware?
Well, they were talking about things like discrepancies in power levels and whatnot, and how certain armies didn't function quite as well under the restrictions of detachment and whatnot. I mean, the specific example they used was the Drukhari Codex, because of course one of the big revelations from yesterday, which I was actually shocked by. I did not expect this, but it had me dancing on the ceiling because they're my favorite alien Xenos army in 40k. The Drukhari. The Drukhari Codex is coming quite early in 2021, apparently.
Yeah, seems like it.
Really bloody surprising and very, very, very welcome. I mean, after what they've done with the Necrons, I can't wait to see what they do with them. I cannot wait. But one of the things they were talking about was, in 8th Ed, the Drukhari necessarily had some issues because of the way the army goes together. In the background, you've got like lots of different types of Drukhari armies. So on the one hand, you've got 3 distinct veins of Drukhari army. You've got the Cabalites, you've got the witch cults, and you've got the homunculi covens, right? So you can have armies formed entirely around or themed around one of them. However, there's also in the background the notion of the Drukhari raiding force, which is the most common form of Drukhari force, and that combines them all together. So in the 8th edition codex, to represent that, what they did was they made it so that you could take 3 distinct patrol detachments. Each one was themed around a Cabalite, a witch cult, and a homunculi coven, respectively, which was a raiding force, yeah? And you wouldn't be prohibited as a result of that. However, that meant that the themed forces, the specific Drukhari forces, were not quite as functional. They weren't quite as powerful as this sort of polyglot force which had all of them together. And what they found was actually Dark Elder players tend to like their themed forces a bit more. They like to collect their witch cults. They like to collect them. For me, it's the homunculi covens. Cenobites in space. How can I not love that? How can I not love that? These ancient Eldari who have made they've made such a lifestyle and ideology, almost a religion, out of pain and mutilation, that some of them collect deaths. They go into real space and they try to find the most inventive, interesting way that they can die. So that they can then be reborn in Comorra, and they can gloat about it. They can go around their minions and their peers and say, you know what happened to me? You know what's happened to me? Let me tell you this story. I've suffered the most amazing death imaginable.
Yeah,
it's brilliant. I love that to bits. So if the Drukhari Codex comes out well, I will probably be collecting an homunculi force. I mean, the thing about the homunculi as well that I've always loved is that they let your imagination run wild. I mean, they are these ageless experts in surgery and genetics, such that whoever they take into their covens, they recreate. They take them apart and recreate them. They stitch bits onto them. They transform them, and they make them into these bizarre monsters called Raks, which are they're Drukhari largely, but they don't have to be. They can be anything. But which are all unique. They're all surgically altered to be entirely unique works of art. So you can do what you like. You can just buy plastic bits, basically. Buy boxed sets of different plastic bits and cobble them together to create your racks. That's the most fun way of doing it. It's great fun. I love that stuff to bits. So that's probably what I'm going to be doing. Also, they noted in the live stream that the Drukhari in the last edition were massively underpowered. There was something about the way the Drukhari have always been difficult. They've always had problems ever since they were originally introduced, because they've always had their whole thing is glass cannon. That's their whole thing. They're supposed to have really powerful weaponry, like weaponry that looks like magic to other races. It's like miraculous. It's semi-miraculous. Some of the Cabals, they have devices that can literally extinguish suns or open up black holes or warp time, you know? But it's never really manifested properly on the battlefield. It's never manifested properly. On the other hand, they're also really fragile. Even more so than the Asiani, you know, they're Craft World cousins. They don't have the heavy units that the Asiani have, like the Aspect Warriors and whatnot. They just don't have them. In a battle of attrition, they're going to die. They're just going to fall apart. And that's fine. That's the way the army is characterized. I don't mind that personally. But it's meant that they've never really got the output of damage balanced with their lack of endurance. They've never got that right. And in 8th Ed, they just died, you know? They were just a very difficult army to use, especially against armies like the Space Marines, which had a lot going for them.
I was going to say the Space Marines probably just cut them down very quickly.
Pretty much. The Death Guard, obviously, very powerful army at the beginning of 8th Ed, very difficult to stand against. Even their Asiani cousins were far more durable and far more powerful than they were. So problematic, you know. But it does sound like, I mean, from what they were saying, they acknowledged it. I love the fact they're acknowledging the complaints that people have got, you know, the problems that people have had, and they said we've taken pains to make sure taken pains, pun intended, to ensure that the new Drukhari Codex, it will emphasize this glass cannon thing. So they're going to be able to put out just insane damage, and that's what you should focus on. They should be like this incredibly aggressive army where you want to get into your opponent's table quarter as quickly as possible and cut them down. You know?
Yeah, they were mentioning something in the stream about, I can't remember what unit it was, but they're going to be doing...
It was the Incubi.
Yeah, and they're going to be doing like a hit on +2 or something like that, which is unheard of outside of characters.
Outside of characters.
That sounds pretty good.
Not only that, but they've upped the damage output of their weapons. The Claves have now got damage 2 standard, which can be actually enhanced by different stratagems and whatnot. So these guys, I mean, the Incubi are supposed to be like... When they were originally introduced, they were basically the Space Marine killers. That's what they were for. They're basically Aspect Warriors. Do you know the background of the Incubi?
No, not offhand. I thought you were going to say Aspect Warriors, and I was going to say, like, I think we talked about that last time.
Well, they are basically the Drukhari equivalent of Aspect Warriors. They've got temples throughout Comorra, the Dark City. And whereas the other Drukhari are all backstabbing bastards who are all about, you know, personal power and gain for me, the Drukhari have this kind of twisted sense of honor. They are they're the servants of Cain, you know, the god of murder, the god of war. And they are living weapons. They've dedicated their entire lives to perfecting the precise kill. So they don't care about pain. They don't care about agony as such. They care about killing their opponents. And that's what they are. They're living weapons. They are living weapons. They are swift. They're fast. They are massively heavily armored. And they live in this constant state of battle, of war. Even within their temples, they have to watch out because their opponents or even their own brothers will cut them down if they feel that they're unworthy.
Okay.
And that's how you become an Incubi. Actually, you have to. It's dead man's boots. Basically, you get into an Incubi temple by killing a current incumbent and taking their armor and their weapons.
Right.
So they are really powerful. They're heavily skilled. So they need to be like meat grinders on the battlefield. That's the way they should work. And now it looks like they probably will work that way. I just hope they've also translated that to other units. So, I mean, sadly, one of the elements of the Drukhari that have always suffered is my favourites, the Homunculi Covens. They've always been fun, they've always been interesting, but they've never gotten the balance right. They've never been as durable as they should be. I mean, these guys don't care about pain at all. They live pain. They actually relish it. They love it, you know? There's a really funny bit of background in the last Drukhari Codex where a Space Marine blows a clear hole through the torso of an homunculi that's floating in front of him, and the homunculi looks down at it and goes, "Ow." And then smiles and basically takes the Space Marine apart with its surgical implements and its talons. They don't care about pain. They don't care about mutilation. They don't care about losing limbs. A lot of them don't care about losing heads or things like that. They will keep going, you know?
Yeah.
And that should be represented. That should be represented somehow. Maybe like a sort of feel no pain kind of rule, you know, where if an homunculi coven unit is harmed, you roll a dice, and on a 5+4+, they just ignore the wound or something, you know?
Yeah, that'd be neat.
Just something like that that represents the fact that you can't hurt these guys. You just can't. It's impossible. And even if you do, they'll enjoy it. They'll actually rather like it. So, you know,
I imagine, like you say, keeping the lore of that would be quite difficult and not putting them over the overpowered aspect.
That's a difficulty. That's the difficulty. Yeah. They should. And also, it's very difficult within the purview of the Drukhari because they're actually kind of antithetical to what the Drukhari are generally like. Yeah. That whole glass cannon thing. The homunculi covens are the exception. They're the exception in the sense that they should be really quite durable, you know? Quite slow-moving compared to other Drukhari armies because they don't care. They're not going to hurry because they actually don't care. You know, it's languid. Whenever they occur in the background, like homunculi are like... they're these bored aristocrats. They just regard the material universe as a resource of flesh and of matter for their experiments, and also as a place to parade. They like to parade their creations, and that's what fighting against them is like. It's like a grotesque carnival. So they don't hurry themselves. They don't rush around like the other Drukhari do. They kind of float languidly through the air and just sort of direct their covens as and how they want, you know, almost like maestros, you know? It's really cool, or like carnival masters. It's really, really cool. But it's difficult to represent. It's difficult to represent correctly or adequately on the tabletop.
Yeah, because if you wanted to make them languish, that would, like... From a very basic perspective, you go, oh, well, languish means they're slow, so they're slow moving. And then if you like that, you can go, okay, I guess I can make them tanky.
Right.
But if they're so slow, are they just going to get cut down before they even get into combat?
That's an issue. That's it. That's the issue, difficult. Isn't it? That's the difficulty with them. How do you represent it adequately? And in context with the other Drukhari elements that are actually really fast and fragile.
I'm so glad I'm not a game designer.
Right, it's hard. It's
very hard.
I think the Drukhari are probably one of the most unforgiving armies in 40k in that regard to get right. To get absolutely right.
It sounds because in a way they're quite diverse in terms of how they could be played or how the rules could work for them.
Right.
Rather than like Death Guard, who I imagine I don't want to say easy because it almost sounds like I'm disrespecting the complexity of making the Death Guard. But you go with Death Guard, you go, okay, they're tanky units. Yeah. We just got to make them big, slow, and output damage quite high, but not over the top.
That's it. That's
their main feature. They just eat damage alive, and they just laugh.
That's it exactly. Okay, I mean, you are right. The Death Guard, in comparison, are they're easy because their modus operandi, their ethos is really defined. And it's universal across the army. There are no really fast-moving units in a Death Guard army because there aren't supposed to be, you know?
Yeah.
They lumber along, they're really slow, and as you say, they're massively tanky. They just take damage like you wouldn't believe. I mean, how do you actually put them down? I mean, short of burning them to nothing or hacking them to bits, how do you put them down? Because they don't care. They've already suffered. They are suffering the worst anyone could possibly suffer already, so...
That's why the Necrons are the best, because they disintegrate everything, so it's just part and parcel of what they do.
Right. But no, I mean, it's exciting. It's exciting. I was really, really excited to see that. I was like...
Do you hope for a new mini or two? Because obviously, I think with the book coming out this soon, I don't think I mean, clearly we're not going to get anything... massively
not anything
but do you hope for like one character?
Yes,
like that?
I would have thought. I mean, given the onus and the emphasis at the moment is on big character models, isn't it? You know, it's big character models. It's things like Zarek, like Magnus, like Mortarion. The obvious one is Asdrabale.
Yeah.
The
See,
obvious thing to
I
do.
wasn't even going that big. I was going for something a lot smaller scale,
Hmm.
just like a commander unit, on the basis that obviously the Death Guard book, we know that's coming out, and we know that
Yep.
there's one
Yep.
character I think coming
Insofar
out.
as we know, yeah, the what was he called? I can't remember what he was
I
called, but
can't remember.
he's the equivalent of a
Like a
warp
Terminator
smith.
captain, right?
Yeah, he's
Oh,
like,
Warpsmith. Okay.
yeah, he's the equivalent of a warp smith in the Death Guard forces. So he looks after.
Hmm.
He's like half allied to the Hellforges. I can't remember what he's called, but his whole shtick is that he enhances. He's basically the buffing character for the demon engines.
Right.
Yeah, so he accompanies the demon engines and he buffs them with his aura abilities. So something like that, I don't know. Something like that,
I would
maybe.
imagine so. At the very least, something like a captain HQ kind of unit would make sense. So, can you think of an HQ unit that would be useful, of that you'd like to see, or
It's
that
hard.
like has an old model that could be nicely
Well,
replaced?
the thing is, they're all really. I mean, this is one area where the Drukhari are actually really well represented. They've got the entire miniatures range, and they're all pretty up to date, and they're all pretty damn good.
Ah, that's good.
It would be difficult. Maybe they could do like different. I mean, one of the things they could do is maybe introduce different lieutenant characters like they used to have,
Okay.
just to vary the levels of command that they've got. I mean, at the moment you've got the Archons who rule the Cabalites, you've got the Succubi who rule the Witch Cults, and you've got the Homunculi who lead the Homunculi Covens. It would be nice to maybe have some variation. So maybe you could have like an Acolyte Homunculi who's learning, sort of like a student Homunculi. Maybe you could have a lesser version of Succubus or something, or a what do they used to call the? There used to be a lieutenant character for the Cabalites. I can't remember what they're called now though. Who used to be sort of just like the one step, the star scream, basically, the one step down, the scheming
Right.
lieutenant who was always trying to take power away from the Archon, that would be fun. Something like that would be cool. I can't think of anything else unless they introduce something entirely new, to be honest.
Okay. Which they might do, of course.
They might. I mean, it would be, given how soon it seems to be. I think it's doubtful that we will get Azdrabale, but then again, stranger things have happened.
That's true. That's
You know?
true. They could just do him as a single release, like you say.
Yeah, and he would be the obvious one because he has been talked about and has become ascendant in the background recently. So it would make sense for it to be him, and also big miniature. Big
Yeah, I mean,
big
give him
miniature.
a big barge or whatever the Raiden ships were called. Yeah, it's easy enough.
Well,
Makes
that's
sense.
when he had his original miniature way back in Third Ed. He rode around on a big Ravager called the Dace of Destruction,
That's right. Yeah.
which was great fun, really good fun. So hopefully, I'm fingers crossed for Azdrabale for me, but we'll see. We'll see. What else? I mean, I suppose. I mean, we were talking about it before we came on, but one of the things I liked about this particular live stream was even the stuff that I would have considered to be lesser to like my interests personally. I actually really liked. I really liked, and for me, I suppose the least of it would have been the Middle Earth stuff. But this time round, it's the new model of Treebeard. They're getting the Middle Earth gamers are getting the new model of Treebeard, and it's gorgeous.
Yeah, it's really good. It's top quality. Did they say it's multi-parts to it, or
It's
is it
multi-part.
just
Yep. No, it's multi-part. There's certain options you can have for it. So you can it comes with Merry and Pippin, and you can have either Merry and Pippin on their own as individual miniatures, or you can have them riding on Treebeard.
Oh, so I meant multi-parts as in change him so he's not just Treebeard.
Oh,
make him just an Ent.
I don't know about that.
Okay.
But
No, I wasn't sure.
from what we saw, it does look like there are also going to be Ent miniatures released with him.
The main reason I ask is because I was wondering, for people who play like Sylvaneth, like how is it easy enough to convert him into any kind of tree thing?
Oh, I think so. Yeah,
I would imagine so.
definitely. I mean, there is the slight variation in scale, but actually, I don't think that would matter. This is a very big miniature, and I think it would fit rather well, with the Sylvaneth army.
Yeah.
I mean, clearly, the Sylvaneth are half inspired by the Ents and whatnot, clearly. So, yeah, there's a very clear cross-pollination going on there. But yeah, it's lovely. It's a really beautiful, excellent piece of work. So detailed. I mean, if you look at the pictures that are up on on the Warhammer community site at the moment, it's actually astoundingly brilliant because it's plastic now instead of the old metal one. There's all these hollow bits. There's, as you'd expect from a tree, what is essentially a walking tree. You've got all of these little gaps and areas where the roots are growing strangely, and it's lovely. Little bits of fungi poking out from him. He's lovely, absolutely lovely. For a painter, just for someone who likes painting miniatures, I imagine that is just a must-have. It's a must-have miniature.
Yeah, and to make it look like proper wood as well, which the painter for the promo has done a great job of. It's not just brown; it's brown with light browns for the lighting on it and everything like that.
Yeah.
It's a very, very pretty job.
It's a very cool piece of work. And just coming up with a paint scheme for it, your own unique paint schemes would be lots of fun. The research you could do, looking at different trees and, different types of bark and whatnot. It's kind of a project, isn't it? It's a project miniature in and of itself. Yeah, like it a lot. Like it a hell of a lot. And I'm really pleased for, because there were some Middle-earth players in the chat, apparently. They actually did reference some of the Middle-earth players who were talking about, what they thought was coming, and they were surprised that there was anything for Middle-earth coming up in the pipeline. So that was nice. It's nice that they're getting something, and something so good.
Yeah, I imagine the GW team are trying to make sure that all the games they put out, they're trying to do something for them.
Yeah.
I guess the only game that feels like they haven't done anything for a while is Titanicus.
Titanicus, yeah. Titanicus
That's
is
the only one they haven't done something for recent. It feels like for a while.
For a little while. It's a little neglected, isn't it? It tends to fall behind some of the other... things like Blackstone Fortress, when that was being produced, that obviously it fell behind stuff like that. Stuff like Necromunda, which is massively popular. I mean, I wasn't that into Necromunda until recently when I bought some of the books. I bought some of I bought the Gangs of the Underhive book.
Oh, okay.
Wonderful. Absolutely
wonderful. What made you buy them? Was it just on the whim thing?
No, I was doing some research for a story I was writing actually, and I needed to know some stuff about the background of Necromunda. So I bought it and got well into it. The whole sort of the melting pot politics of it, where you've got this upstairs downstairs thing going on, where there's the upper spires where the ruling houses of Necromunda live, the aristocrats, and then you've got the Underhive, which is just the most wretched, polluted, disgusting place imaginable, where the real politics plays out, and you've got the gang houses, where that's where the real stuff happens. It's great fun. You can almost do anything you like in Necromunda. There are systems whereby you can create almost any kind of character, any kind of house or gang of your own. It's wonderful fun. I mean, what we saw yesterday, of course, was not a new addition. This particular house is one of the primary houses of Necromunda. They've been around forever. They've been around since the inception of Necromunda, way back when. But they've kind of been a little bit neglected of late. Some of the other houses have got way more stuff, like House Delac and House Goliath and whatnot. House Van Saar, they are kind of like the most technologically advanced house on Necromunda.
You mean the nerds?
Yeah, basically, yeah. Basically, yes. They scavenge as much technology as they can, and they're often under suspicion from the Inquisition and from the Adeptus Mechanicus, because they clearly use technology that's outside.
This is all standard issue stuff. This is like Imperial Guard stuff. The Guard all have this high tech floaty stuff and shields.
It damn well isn't. I mean, for these particular guys, the new House Van Saar guys, they've clearly gone for an alien influence, haven't they? They look like Drakari, or like I mean, the guy, I don't know what he's called, but the bigger guys with the multiple arms and whatnot, they look a little bit like Ambots, don't they?
See, I saw them and I thought they'd be a nice little potential conversion into Necrons myself.
Definitely. Yeah, they would work really, really well in a Necron army, actually. They've got the head, they've got cut off the slightly more organic parts, like the hands, and you're well away.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
But they're lovely miniatures. I mean, all of them are absolutely lovely miniatures, and entirely. This is something you get in Necromunda, which I really like. It's like a little melting pot, and there are so many science fiction influences and images and designs they bring into Necromunda that isn't necessarily out there in the wider Warhammer 40,000 universe. So these guys, they look. Their aesthetic is entirely their own. There's nothing in the Imperium. I mean, like you said, like in the Imperial Guard or in the Space Marines or in any of the ordos of the Inquisition that are quite like this. They're their own strange idiosyncratic thing, and I love that. I absolutely love it. They're beautiful minis. They're absolutely beautiful minis. I mean, I want the background. I want the book to see what they've done with them.
You know what my only concern is?
What's that?
The clear parts.
Yeah, the clear parts are always slightly problematic.
I only say that because as of recent, I was putting together the old Necron kits, and they have the clear rods, which you just paint over because they don't work.
They're
it's
so
too much
frustrating.
faff.
They're so frustrating.
To be fair, the main faff with them is they don't actually fit most of the time. I'm sure these will fit, but hopefully these clear shields will be easy enough to either mask off or to stick on later.
Yeah, let's hope so. Let's hope so. Because clear parts are you're right, clear parts have always been problematic in Games Workshop miniatures. You get this problem whereby they either cloud over when you put glue on them.
Oh, yes.
Which is problematic, or you get paint on them, in which case they're kind of ruined, you know? I mean, what a lot of people do with clear plastic elements is just paint over them.
I will be interested to see what people do for that, you know, to give it an energy glow on the shield. I think that'll be good for like really high-end painters and stuff. That'll look
great. Where they cast the glow back onto the figures.
Oh yeah, I hadn't even thought of that. That'd be even better.
Yeah, that's impressive. I mean, there's a lot of that in the high-end painting at the moment, isn't there? Because have you noticed Games Workshop have gone really mad with the lighting effects on their miniatures?
Yeah, I don't know whether that was a mandate that all the painters had to do it, or whether it was just that batch of new painters came in and went, oh wow, let's paint lighten.
Well, I mean, there's that, and there's also it is difficult, and there's also the fact that now the miniatures have just got more light sources on them than they ever had before. So there are things like, you know, Magnus's orb of energy that he's got in his palm and that kind of thing. There are Mortarion's lanterns and things that cast almost all of the Night Haunts have got some kind of light source on them, like, you know, whether it's a lantern or whether it's the Night Haunts themselves who glow, you know.
I don't tend to worry about that. I'm just trying to learn how to not make my miniatures look like poo, so I'm not even considering light sources at the moment.
The only time I've looked into it is bigger miniatures. So Magnus, when I get around to painting him, I'm definitely going to do the light glow on his hand from the spell that he's casting and whatnot. I mean, because my Magnus, the wings I've tried to paint to make them look like fire. So I could, if I really wanted to go nuts, I could cast a glow on his back, you know, from the fire, but I don't think I'm going to go into that. I think that's a bit much. You know, I think that's a bit much, and just getting the damn thing done, for one thing. That's the problem.
He's been a project for you since a
long time.
Last year?
It's a bit longer than that.
Oh no, okay.
It's a bit longer than that. Yeah, it's time. It's time.
Totally.
It's time.
You've got your finger in many pies as well.
That's it. It's bloody time, and it's the amount of other stuff that draws on those energies, you know. Yeah, but I'll do it. I'll sit down and have like a dedicated weekend where I just get it all done. You know, that tends to be how it works for me. But yeah, I'm really pleased as well that they're still supporting Necromunda, because Necromunda is great.
Do you think this is all that this house is getting, or do you think there will be more units as well?
Oh, I think there's more. I think there's well more than that. Definitely the case.
This is a little taster of what Van Sars has in the back pocket.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I think there's at least going to be, I think, another model or unit to go with them. Maybe like the equivalent of a command model of some description.
Do you think they'll have at least a basic kind of infantry kind of unit as well,
Yeah,
since
I
all of
should
these
think
seem
so.
to be more elite-y?
Yes, yeah, I should
Ish?
think so. So some sort of ground unit, yeah. Also,
Yeah.
I mean, these guys were described as like they're the Juves, they're the young members of Van Saar. So
Hmm.
they need the more dedicated foot soldiers. You know, they need the more representative clansmen of Van Saar for it to work. They can't just be like the youth element. Otherwise, it
Knowing
doesn't.
about them, do you think they would have the youth element, or do you think they'd be more like we have robots instead?
Oh no, I mean these guys are the youth element. These
Oh,
guys
sorry. Okay.
riding the very fast experimental anti-grav technology. They are the youth element. That's their
Right.
background. That technology that they're riding is really unstable. As you'd imagine, it's anti-grav technology in Necromunda, you know, so it's like scavenged together from various like STCs and alien constructs and whatnot. So it does have a tendency to A, leak radiation, which poisons
Hmm.
them, and B, blow up.
Yeah, you can't. From what I remember hearing, they said don't paint these guys to look healthy.
No.
Pretty much.
No. The members of Van Sard, one of the things that happens to them is they don't live very long.
Hmm.
The radiation from their suits alone kills them. So yeah, you don't from their weapons as well. I mean, they use a lot of like plasma weaponry, like ancient plasma weaponry and that kind of thing, and it tends to radiate and severely harm them.
Will
when
it
it
be like how the old plasma guns work? Do you think for these guys? Do you think there'll be a lot of potential back explosions and
yes,
killing off of
oh
your own
yeah,
troops by accident?
yeah, there'll be loads of that, and I imagine
Oh
these
no,
guys.
these guys are the Skaven force.
Oh yeah, and
Oh
I
no.
imagine like these guys. I imagine there's going to be some like random table where they veer out of control and they crash and whatnot. That wouldn't
Right.
surprise me in the least. I hope so, because that makes them fun. That's the whole thing with Necromunda. You know, it's fun to play. It's
Hmm.
fun to play. I mean, my favourite thing in Necromunda is from the Gangs of the Underhive book, where you can create your own bounty hunter, and
Ah.
your bounty hunter can be absolutely anything.
Mm-hmm.
It's the limit of your imagination. They can be anything. They can be like a disgraced inquisitor who's slumming it in the bowels of Necromunda, trying to avoid the eyes of the Inquisition. They can be some weird alien robot construct that's found its way into the Underhive and is just trying to pass as human, you know? They can be anything.
Yeah.
So you just go nuts. You just go absolutely nuts with your imagination with these guys. It's brilliant fun. I mean, another big surprise for me, the Diachasm miniatures.
Oh yeah.
What the hell
Yeah.
was that about? Where did they come from?
Well, this is from what I remember saying. This is the first expansion to the Diachasm. So
Yeah,
Diachasm's coming out, and this is their first kind of warband for that.
yeah. I was really shocked. I was not expecting to see like new Slaves to Darkness stuff
I
at
wasn't
all.
expecting to see any Diachasm since Diachasm isn't like part three. Sorry, Diachasm itself, Underworld's part three, isn't out yet.
Isn't
I
even
was
out,
like,
right?
okay, no. I think Diachasm's meant to be out in a like let's say a month or something. I don't know. It's
Right,
not
right.
out now at the very least.
So to be actually like
Or is
talking
it?
about the expansions and the miniatures that are going to be coming out later, very surprising. But I'm glad again you've got like this niche game that is getting a lot of support.
Hmm.
And I was keeping an eye on the chat when they showed these guys, and people went nuts
Yeah, I
because
mean
they're
these are
great.
really good.
They're great. They're
Yeah.
such lovely miniatures. For me, the one that takes the biscuit is that Chaos Sorcerer.
Oh, that one's very nice. Yeah,
I
I like
love
this.
it.
I like the one that a lot of people like, the Slambo-ish one.
You know what? Did you see when people were saying, is that Slambo? It
Yes,
may as well be.
pretty much. Yeah, if you really want to make him Slambo, cut off the
Easy.
top of the sword part and just give him another axe. Boom.
Easy peasy. I mean, it's basically, he is the classic Chaos Warrior, isn't he?
Yeah,
The
pretty much.
very epitome of it, but beautifully detailed. I love him. I'd want this set just to paint
Yeah,
because they're
I mean
gorgeous.
to be fair, I think that's why a lot of people get Underworlds who might not play Underworlds. It's like, well, these minis are all fantastic.
Yeah.
And if I have an army I can slot them into, yeah, okay, even better.
Well, it makes
Sure.
sense, doesn't it? Because of course, I mean, like for each individual miniature in Underworlds to be a work of art, because of course they're much more individual than they are in, say, like an AOS army. So for them to be more like hero style, it does make a lot of sense. I love the detail, the fact that he's got a cloak that appears to be made from some sort of like scaly beast. That's very cool. The broken horn on one's, I love that stuff. I love that stuff.
Yeah, there's a lot of details to show that they've all had a journey, shall we say?
Well, what the guys were saying is they look like how the old artwork of Chaos Warriors used to look before the miniature sculpting technology could catch up with it.
Yeah, agreed.
Like way back when, way back when, and that's exactly it. That's exactly what they look like. Also, lovely thing, female Chaos Warriors. At long last, it makes sense. It makes sense. Chaos is.
I mean, to be fair, George, all of these could be female Chaos
That's
Warriors.
true. I mean, there comes a point where with Chaos where it just doesn't matter, does it? You know? The Chaos Gods are ironically quite equal opportunity. They don't care.
A soul's a soul at the end of the day.
Exactly, they don't care, and it makes sense for in the same way. With the Sigmarite Stormcasts, you know, it makes sense for there to be women and men as well. Of course it does. Of course it does. There are as many women who arise from the Chaos tribes as there are men, and there are as many warriors among. You know, there are as many female warriors amongst them, and there are also as many female sorcerers. I mean, if you look at the sorcerer, apparently. It's the brother, isn't it? Or
I thought it was the sister.
The sister, that's right. The sister, yeah. So it's a female chaos sorcerer, which makes a great deal of sense. It makes a great deal of sense. I'm glad that we're seeing that represented now. You see, I mean, it is represented in, you know, the new Chaos Warrior pack that you can get for the Slaves to Darkness.
Which one? Do you mean the starter set?
Just the standard unit of Chaos Warriors that you can get.
Right.
There are options in that unit for either helmeted heads or bared heads, and a lot of the bared heads are women, which is great. It just makes a lot of sense, and I like the fact that they've introduced immediate narrative here as well. So these guys are a family unit. They're actually like a family unit from one of the tribes of Chaos, and that works really well. That works really well in conjunction with the background for the Slaves to Darkness and whatnot. I'm just looking at the sorcerer, and I love that bit of like chaos energy that's sort of situated in the staff.
Yeah, that's almost become a kind of a staple, because we've seen this with quite a few of the Chaos guys. Like, who was the guy in Shadow Spear? That Chaos Sorcerer?
Yeah, I think he was a Chaos Sorcerer, yeah.
Yeah, his was more like fiery based than this one is,
right,
where this is a bit more ethereal flame, but it seems like they've kind of got that magic-y kind of effect in staffs kind of down at this point, which is great.
That's going to be standard from this point on, to be honest.
Definitely.
I think it's going to be standard. But it is lovely. It's just lovely to see. I'm so pleased that all of these smaller games are getting dedicated attention, and people seem to be really battening onto it. You know, the chat went nuts when these guys came up.
I will be a little bit selfish and say I'm disappointed that there's still been no like Bone Reapers for Diachasm or any of the previous ones yet.
But give it time.
Yeah, I'm sure it's coming.
There will be. There definitely will be. I mean, they made it clear that they really want to introduce all of the different armies and units into this system. So just give it time, and there will be one.
The problem I had with Beastgrave was there wasn't one set that I thought looked particularly cool, at least for me. Yeah, they had the ghouls, and you've heard what Griff says about ghouls, and I kind of feel the same way. A lot of them are a bit on the dull side.
They're ancient.
Nurgle stuff,
you know.
Well, there's that, but there's even these newer updated ones. I didn't think they looked cool.
No,
they didn't look. Oh my god, they look so good.
I think what they really need to do with like the Flesh Eater Courts, you know, because the background is amazing. The background and the new book. If you read the new book, it's great.
Which new book?
The new Flesh Eater Courts battle tome that came out not too long ago.
I thought you meant like a novel or something.
Oh no, the new battle tome. It's really good. It's so good. But the miniatures range needs to catch up.
Yeah, it needs a bit more character to it, and the problem with the what was it called, the Grime Watch, I think they were called, was they were still very much the ghouls or the idea of the ghouls from the previous things. And
Yes.
this, to me, they didn't have a lot of character to
Yeah.
them. But they fit in nicely with the standard ghouls, I suppose. But yeah,
But that set
the only other one that I liked the look of was the Blade Coven, the witch elves. And that's because the witch elves just look nice. I mean, the witch elves are always good, but that was the only one that kind of tickled my interest.
They are very, very nice indeed, I've got to say.
Are you gonna buy the new Diachasm just for the Slaanesh stuff?
Well, the thing is, if you're a Slaanesh player, then it's double the value, because the witch elves and the blood brides of Cain, they translate over so easily to Slaanesh. Because they've got that Slaaneshi influence anyway. They've got the Scathborn, the snake women and whatnot.
That's right, yeah.
They translate over so well, so you are basically doubling your value with that. So yeah, absolutely. That it's an easy must buy, that one. And also then you've got the Slaanesh stuff, which is freaking lovely. One of the other things we saw, which I was kind of surprised to see, we got a little bit of stuff from the Dark Angels. My favourite of the quote-unquote loyalist chapters.
The joke continues.
I love the fact they're leaning into that now. I mean, in the last one where basically people started saying in the chat, so another Chaos faction then, great.
Yes.
And they leaned into it. They actually leaned into it. I love that. So they were talking about the new Codex supplement coming in 2021, I believe, which is going to be the Dark Angels. If the Space Wolves, who are very much their equivalents, because the Dark Angels and the Space Wolves don't get on. They've got a long history of not getting on very well at all. Largely because I believe, was it Lionel Johnson who punched out Lehman Russ, or the other way round?
I hope it was Lionel punching out.
I hope it's that way too, but I don't think it was.
No, probably not.
There was basically a punch-up between the legions, and one of the Primarchs ended up punched and laid out flat on the ground. And they've never really forgotten. They really don't like one another, the Dark Angels and the Space Wolves. They're often at odds.
There's not a lot of people that get on well with the Space Wolves.
Actually, it's a fair point. It's a drinking game. You take a drink every time you come across a faction that the Space Wolves have pissed off, and then you die of alcohol poisoning within half an hour.
Yeah, very quickly.
Very quickly. Just off the top of my head, Thousand Sons, Dark Angels, World Eaters, Night Lords. Who else have they pissed off? Imperial Fists at various points, Ultramarines. Yeah, pretty much everyone at this point. There's Orcs from the Battle of Armageddon.
Orcs are pissed off at everybody though, so that almost doesn't count.
The Orcs is a different kind of pissed off. They're not pissed off. They're having a ruck. It's fun.
Yeah, it's
fun for them. But yeah, pretty much the Space Wolves basically get on everyone's nerves. But the Dark Angels...
mine as well.
Yes, yeah. Even though, as I say, the new Codex, it's really good. It's well worth reading. It's great fun. They've leaned really heavily into that whole space Viking thing. So they're like the Nordic Asgardian mythology in Space Marine form.
Here's a question. Did they lean into the hypocrisy of the Space Wolves in it as well? No. Shame.
It's... Not overtly. It's one of those things where it's really overblown. You know how the Imperial Codexes are often written from the perspective of an Imperial, someone of Imperial persuasion. So it's really overblown about how heroic they are and blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
But it actually works really well for the Space Wolves because that's how they work. That's their culture. They are that overblown. I mean, you've got the whole notion of the sagas, where they sit around in their drinking halls and exaggerate and sing about their escapades and what they've endured and whatnot. So it works really well. And that element is throughout the Codex. You've even got special characters who are basically the Space Wolf equivalents of the Asgardian gods. So there's a Loki in there, Lucas the Trickster. There's Arjak Rockfist, who I believe is Thor. There's the Chapter Master. What's his name? I always get him confused with Lehman Russ. It's not Lehman Russ. It's the big space wolf with the chariot with the long white hair. Santa Claus, the space wolf. Chapter Master. He is Odin. He's basically Odin.
Okay, right.
They are the Asgardian gods, and they've lent heavily into that, and also the notion of them being very feral. The notion of the Wolfen curse is really prominent in this codex, which is nice. They're werewolves. They're essentially werewolves, which is really cool. I kind of like that. I like that. The notion of genetically engineered Asgardian Viking werewolves. I think, all joking aside, I think it's really quite fun. I think it's really quite cool.
Oh, yeah. It's a great idea. I mean, Norse mythology, I already think is a very interesting thing. So to mesh it in with a gaming system and space stuff,
right.
I'm down with that. That's great.
Yeah, down to clown. And also they are one of the most human chapters. The Space Wolves are really unlike all of the other Space Marine chapters that still exist, because the Space Wolves are actually kind of human. They still like to eat, and they like to drink, and they like to party, and they talk more or less like human beings do. Rather than this very heightened, faux gothic way of speaking. They act and talk like human beings, by and large, which is kind of fun. I like the human element of them. They're still massive hypocrites, and I will hate them forever for Prospero, but I still kind of like them.
I guess that kind of makes them human in itself as well, to be that hypocritical.
Yeah, it kind of does. It kind of does, But the Dark Angels are my favourite of the Space Marine chapters. I love their monasticism, the mystery around them, all of that sort of hoods and veils thing that they've got going on. That slight
their aesthetic's amazing.
Oh, it's great. And that whole conspiracy theory thing, where they have this dark secret that and their own agendas that they maybe pursue above and beyond the agendas of the Imperium. Love that. Oh, by the way, if you want another chapter that's pissed off a hell of a lot of people, Dark Angels, they have annoyed a lot of people, I'm telling you. But what I hope from this book, beyond anything else, is that it moves the story on for them a little bit. Because the last we saw of them, the Rock had been invaded. The chunk of their destroyed homeworld, Caliban, which is now their base of operations, it had been invaded by the Changeling, the Demon of Zeech, which had taken on the form of one of their own brethren, and it let Luther loose, the original traitor of the Dark Angels, who led half of their chapter into treachery during the Horus Heresy. He has been sealed in the Rock since the Horus Heresy, and the Changeling let him loose, and no one knows where he is. So I'm hoping they lean into that a little bit, and we see a little bit more of that. Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. Love me some Dark Angels. Love me some Dark Angels. I mean, the other thing, I was kind of surprised. I must admit, I was kind of surprised. I knew they were going to be doing some Death Guard stuff. Everybody knew they were going to be doing some Death Guard stuff because it's imminent, isn't it? The Death Guard are on their way. I was surprised there wasn't anything about the Codex.
I think it's because we just know about it and it's going to be coming out. I think the main push was to try and get out the idea that the mission book was going to be their big thing next.
Yeah. I mean, this is what surprised me, though, and pleasantly so. The fact that they're using the Death Guard Codex as an excuse to move the narrative on a little bit. So you've got the next narrative campaign, which is the Book of Rust, Warzone Caradon, which is going to be a big narrative campaign between the Death Guard, the Adeptus Mechanicus, the Imperial Knights, and surprisingly, the Drukhari. I think that's... I can't wait to see it. I actually can't wait to see it. So basically, Typhus, first captain of the Death Guard, has been sent by Abaddon, not Mortarion, because Typhus and Mortarion do not get on.
No.
There's a whole sort of father-son thing going on there that's really problematic. They just don't get on, They're estranged, basically. They're estranged. Typhus is more aligned with Abaddon, He believes that Chaos should be much more active than Mortarion does. Mortarion's all about, the slow entropy of time, Whereas Typhus is the raging pandemic. He's like, no, it needs to change now. Father Nurgle waxes strong when mortals fear death and when they suffer. So that's what he's about, So he's been sent by Abaddon to attack this really important Forge world called, imaginatively, Metallica. Yeah.
Not the best name, but fair enough.
Not the best name, but it's been called Metallica for a while, to be fair.
Okay.
It's been in the background for a while. It's basically like the second Forge world to Mars. It's a really big, important Forge world, and that's what this is all about. It is essentially a narrative campaign where the Death Guard are going to be invading this forge world, presumably alongside the Black Legion, but who knows? Maybe there's going to be some Black Legion agents keeping a close eye on the Death Guard. That can't be a fun job.
No, I imagine it's quite a smelly job.
If you draw the short straw if you're accompanying the Death Guard, really. I mean,
what faction do you not draw the short straw with if you're like going with them? Because I can't imagine like, oh, you got to go with the World Eaters. No, I don't want to do that.
There are, at the very least, there are more like reasonable legions out there. I mean, the Thousand Sons are quite reasonable, but then again, because of the chaos energy, also because of the chaos energy and the sorcery that surrounds them, you kind of mutate when you're near them. So there's that. Night Lords, no, you don't want to be anywhere near them because they're massive sadists. Emperor's Children, the same. You definitely don't want to be near them.
I think the worst were the Emperor's Children, to be fair.
I think the very worst would be the Emperor's Children. And only up to a point, though. Yes. Only up to a point, because you would start enjoying it after a while.
Yeah.
So, maybe that's the best case scenario. Who knows?
It depends.
Yeah. As the Chaos Legions go, there aren't that many that are like entirely reasonable. Word Bearers, no, you're going to end up sacrificed or enslaved. Alpha Legion.
I think that the Word Bearers might be all right if you're just watching over them. As long as you don't directly piss them off.
Right.
It might be a little bit more reasonable. But
it's a difficult one, isn't it? I mean, I say you draw the short straw with the Death Guard, but at least they're actually kind of nice.
Well, I think it depends. The Death Guard, not all of them are nice.
Not all
Typhus
of them.
Is not nice.
No, Typhus and the First Company are not. They're actually really unpleasant. But some of the Death Guard are actually quite friendly in their own weird Nurgle-esque way.
Yes.
So if you get one of the Vectoriums that's kind of amiable and avuncular, at the very least they're going to be nice about it.
Yeah, or at least they're not going to be outright hostile. They're going to be like passive,
they'll talk to you.
Yeah,
the Death Guard are one of the few Chaos factions that will actually sit down and talk to you in their own burbling, disgusting way. Whether you want them talking to you, considering the amount of diseases they've got, who knows,
Yeah, that's a put on a face mask.
Full body hazard suit probably wouldn't help, but alongside that, of course, we've got the Crusade mission pack, Plague Purge, which gives you different options for for fighting in the war zone, and I imagine we'll give you lots of different stuff because it's a Crusade add-on, isn't it? So it's based around the Crusade system. So this is like the enhancement of the narrative side of Warhammer 40k, which it seems to me they're really, really playing into at the moment. That seems to be the big push with 9th edition, does it not?
So is this the idea that there's going to now be your standard Warhammer games, which is the Act 1, the Book of Rust, and then there's the specific book for Crusade if you want to do just purely Crusade stuff? Is that the idea behind it?
I think so. I think what it is just add-on missions. It's just like it's missions that you can add in to the campaign, which will enhance it in a narrative way, and also lots of options for just enhancing the Crusade system. So I imagine in here there's going to be lots of different options for the armies involved, different relics, different enhancements, different war gear, depending on what criteria they meet when they're fighting their battles and that kind of thing.
Right.
It's fun. It's a way of just enhancing the narrative edge of 40k. I applaud this stuff. I really, really applaud this stuff because sort of by, leaning into the narrative side, that's the way to go. From my personal biases, that's the way to go. And there are few better armies to do it with than the Death Guard because they're so narrative anyway.
Yeah. All the figures are done for them at this point anyway, so even better. I think that's why we can get I think I mentioned it before, I think this is why we can get these books out as fast as we are.
Yeah.
Because they don't need to worry about miniature releases or anything. It's just like, book, done.
That seems to be
We're not doing any new Space Marines, we're not doing any new Death Guard, apart from this one model of these few models we've got set down the road. We're not doing a huge new range for them, so let's get these suckers out and try and catch up in some ways to try and get back onto the schedule.
Yes, it looks like what they've done is really looked at like the armies that have massive gaps or that are primarily fine cast or whatever, like the Asiani, and they've pushed them right to the back so that they can do a massive release for them. Makes a lot of sense. Makes an enormous amount of sense. The Drukhari are another really good example of that, actually, because as I said, they've already got pretty much their entire miniatures range. Everything is represented and up to date, so yeah, makes sense. But obviously, I think for most people, most people knew after the last, how they were doing those hints at what was going to come in the preview. When they were counting down the days, most people guessed this one because it was kind of obvious who it was going to be from the little teaser we got. But I was still surprised by it, I've got to say. Sigvald, the Magnificent, champion of Slaanesh. He is amazing.
I only know of him as one of the worst legendary lords in Total War Warhammer.
Yes, yeah, he appeared way back when. He appeared way back when as a new Slaaneshi special character. Everyone loved his background. Everyone loved his background because he's like the ultimate narcissist. He is the ultimate narcissist. In the original background, he had rules where he would stop in the midst of battle to preen and to do his hair and to look at his reflection in the mirrored shields of his followers. Is it
fair to say he is the fantasy version of Fulgrim in a lot of ways? Or at least the basis for him.
Very, 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 very much so. And you know what? There are going to be lots of conversions from this of Fulgrim because he looks like him anyway.
I do think it looks a little bit better than the Forge World Fulgrim. Same.
Yeah, there's gonna be conversions. There's gonna be people getting this miniature, chopping the torso off and sticking it on the snake abdomen of Morathai and saying it's Fulgrim.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Like, I wouldn't say it's a bad idea, and I think the conversion idea is good, but I would still say who knows when he's coming. But we've been saying for how many years can we say to hold off for
a while?
I guess that's also a problem, isn't it?
But I think he is coming. Know. I mean, I'm just so surprised. I mean, not too long ago, the pervasive narrative amongst like some of the sites and like the rumor sites and whatnot was, Games Workshop are squatting Slaanesh. Oh, look, they've recessed Slaanesh into the background. Now, Slaanesh is going nuts. Slaanesh is everywhere, and I can't imagine they're not going to carry that over to 40k.
It wouldn't make sense.
It would not make sense. It would not make sense. But I tell you what, Sigvald isn't even my favourite Slaaneshi character in the fantasy setting. But this miniature makes him one of my favourites.
Because it looks really good.
It's just amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, it's great. I'm looking forward to seeing what people can do apart from just make him into Fulgrim and stuff.
Right.
Like that, it's stupid, I know, but that seems like the obvious and the easiest thing to do. But with this body looking the way it does, I think he could make some very interesting other AOS things out of it.
Totally. I mean, the way it's sculpted, it's got a slight elven quality to it. So any like a Lumineth, maybe you could make a Tyrion miniature out of it. That would work.
Oh, that'd be well good.
You could make Tyrion. It's got a very. Another thing I saw someone in the chat saying is I'm going to convert that into Sanguinius.
Yeah, that
Stick
could work
some wings on the back, take the horns off. That would work. Would work. File off some of the more Slaaneshi imagery. Yeah, that would work. You could definitely get away with that. He's beautiful. He's actually beautiful. I mean, it's always been difficult with the Slaaneshi miniatures because their aesthetic is so different from all the other Chaos miniatures, which tend towards the ugly. Slaanesh has this kind of rapturous beauty about it, especially with regards to its champions. And it's always been very difficult to get those very fine facial features that a Slaaneshi champion should have. This guy just does it. He's gorgeous. He's absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, I think there was a reason as well why they made him. Well, I mean, this is an assumption, but he looks like he's one of the bigger miniatures rather than a standard size one. And I think
no, he's big.
That definitely helps.
Yeah. Oh, he's big. Yeah, they've. I mean, I imagine, given that he's now got horns as well, I imagine he's either been elevated to demonhood or there's more of a demonic influence in him. Because the last we saw of Sigvald, he got squatted, I believe, in the end times by a troll. Troll.
What a really sad way to
Right. He got properly squatted. But it's clear that Slaanesh has resurrected him for whatever reason, and has maybe imbued him with a little bit more in the way of power now.
Yeah, one might assume that he's actually hiding his demon form beneath his beauty and the horns of the things that are poking through.
Maybe that's it. I mean, by the way, I was talking to Adam about this. The head sculpt, the way he's got two horns on his brow and the big horns, that is based on how Slaanesh was described and pictured in the original Realm of Chaos books from the 1980s.
Really? That's nice.
Lovely little reference, eh? He actually looks like Slaanesh. The face and the head look like Slaanesh, which is really cool. Really cool. I can't wait to see the background for him. I mean, just generally, one of the things, I love the Hedonites of Slaanesh, but one of the things they did suffer with is a lack of mortal units. When they came out, they were almost entirely demon, right? And I like the mortal Slaanesh followers better than the demon followers of Slaanesh. I just like the dynamic of them, the way they're mortal followers who've taken things to utmost extremes, you know? I love that. And so to see now this gradual introduction of what mortal followers of Slaanesh are going to look like, I'm so pleased. I mean, does this mean we're going to get an updated Hedonites book? Because they did say that these guys are all considered to be Hedonites.
Yeah.
They all come under the Hedonites banner. So I'm just interested to see what they do with them in terms of background, how they introduce them into the Hedonite world.
It feels too soon for a new Hedonites book, because it's been a few years, but it doesn't feel that old compared
it's true. It's true.
To some of them. Maybe, when was the last Slaves to Darkness book? Because if you do
recently.
more followers...
Very recently.
I can't shove them in there either then.
Nope, very recently. So maybe a new book. Maybe there's going to be a Mortal Followers of Slaanesh book or something. I don't know. But I tell you what, the stuff that comes with Sigvald there, beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. They've gone nuts going for a proper Slaanesh aesthetic for like a mortal Chaos Warrior unit. They are to die for beautiful. Again, this is what the artwork of Slaanesh Chaos Warriors used to look like, but was never realised in the game. They're just
What are they called again? The something Painbringers?
Myrmidesh Painbringers? Is it something?
That's
I don't know what that means, by the way. I have no idea. I love the champion of the unit, the one who's got the crest with the 6 horns and the demon shield.
Oh, yeah.
Lovely. I mean,
all of these are very good.
They've gone nuts with the Slaanesh miniatures, the Slaanesh range in AOS. They are going mad with them. So you've got the Myrmidesh Painbringers, and then you've got the Simbaresh Twin Souls, who are basically, they're possessed. They're the equivalents of possessed in AOS. They've got demons inside of them, which is very nice and allows for a lot of fun with conversion material. I mean, what I do to represent them is give them snake lower halves, like the Scathborn.
Ah, okay.
I think that would work really rather well.
Yeah.
I like the champion one, who's got the weird mirror portal of Slaanesh on his back.
Yes, which we've seen quite a few times with other units, haven't we?
We have the what's it called? The big mirror in the Hedonites that you can take as an HQ unit, the big living mirror. And there's also the Endless spell, which is the mirror that's carried by a big hand. It's a consistent theme in Slaaneshi miniatures, which is really, really, really cool. But it does look like, doesn't it, there's going to be a big push for Slaanesh mortal units.
I mean, I guess it makes sense because Nurgle has its own distinct units. Khorne has its own
definitely
distinct
does,
units.
And so does Tzeentch.
Tzeentch does, to a lesser extent, one could argue.
Yeah, it definitely does.
Yeah,
so
it was about time that Slaanesh finally had their more, like you said, they're mortal followers outside of just demons kind of
Right,
look too as
right.
well.
And
Now they do.
also, I mean, for Slaanesh, it makes more sense for there to be mortal followers. I mean, Slaanesh, more than any of the other Chaos gods, really relies on his mortal followers, you know? And the appeal of Slaanesh is far more strong amongst mortals than any of the other Chaos gods. That's
Yeah.
always been a thing. If you look in the background for Slaanesh, the cults of Slaanesh are way more pervasive than any of the other Chaos gods, because of course it is.
Yeah.
I mean, they're all pleasure cults, or they're artistic movements, you know, they're Renaissance movements, or they're philosophical movements, you know? It makes sense for there to be lots of mortals dedicated to Slaanesh, because he's kind of one of the easiest Chaos gods to fall into the worship of.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Easy peasy. I mean, a lot of them start out quite innocent, you know, they join some artistic society or something like that, or just some gathering of like-minded souls, and then it becomes apparent much later on, when it's too late to do anything about it, that they're a Slaanesh cult.
Whoops.
Yep. And by then, of course, they've got you hooked.
Oh, yeah.
You've fallen down that rabbit hole, and you are in trouble. Or not, I mean, as the case may be. I mean, the thing about Slaanesh worship is there comes a point when you don't care. It's all
relative
welcome.
at some point.
Yeah, it's all welcome. So I can't wait to see what they do with them. I mean, the other mortal units for the other Chaos powers all have very distinct backgrounds. So I'm interested to see what these guys are and where they come from and how they function in the game. This is like, when I saw them, it was simultaneous, oh, this is great, and also, oh no.
More money, bye-bye.
More
no
money. Yeah. Does this mean I'm going to have to start collecting an AOS army? Because I tell you what, Slaanesh in AOS is killing it at the minute.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, all of the AOS stuff, I would say, has a really nice, distinct look to them. And this is definitely another notch in the AOS belt of artistic design, I'd say.
It's brilliant. And I love the fact now that if you want to go your classic, like, Chaos Horde, Chaos Warriors, Chaos Knights, you know, old school Games Workshop Chaos Force, you can do that. You've got Slaves to Darkness, you can do that. However, if you want something a bit more distinct that feels like it's dedicated to one of the specific Chaos powers and reflects who and what they are, this is it. You've got.
I would even go as far as to say just do Slaves to Darkness, but play them as the rules intend, as just Slaves to Darkness, but just throw in like Slaanesh dude here, Khorne dude here, but just roll them together.
Yeah,
as
you
long
can
as
do
you
that.
have a strong lord like Archaon, they'd follow him.
Oh, absolutely.
He wouldn't say anything.
But who would say no to Archaon?
Exactly.
I mean, what fool would you have to be? Archaon...
I think, to be fair, if you're following Slaanesh, you're probably saying, "Oh yes."
Yeah, I was going to say. Yeah, everything's in the affirmative, isn't it, for Slaanesh, you know? You don't say no at all. No isn't in their vocabulary, is it, you know? How do you... I mean, that's a thing with Slaanesh followers. How do you actually, like... You know, if you capture one, like a witch hunter carries one, and they're trying to interrogate them. How do you do it?
You remove the sense of feeling, perhaps.
Yeah, you sort of lock them in a room with no stimulus. But then again, after a while, that becomes extreme as well.
It does, yeah.
And I can imagine a Slaanesh follower eventually, like, fetishizing that. You know? There's not much you can do, really.
Not really. I think with Slaanesh, it's best just to kill him, get him out of the way with him, don't bother.
You've got to be very creative.
I think knowledge is the first path on the road to chaos anyway, so best to just get rid of him, just move on.
Definitely. But no, I'm very tempted now. I mean, for a Hedonites army... Yeah, I could go for that, especially with Sigvald.
Look a lot better than anything we saw in the Hedonite book, especially because I've always preferred like the Chaos Warrior look.
Me too.
The pain, I won't bother with the first part, but the pain bringers just look so very good.
Oh,
just look so very good.
Yes, love him to bits. Love him to bits. I can't wait to see if there's anything else out there on the horizon for Slaanesh mortals. You know, are we going to get some other units maybe to bulk them out a bit?
We've been poking, and the idea of the story of him breaking loose at some point, I mean, it just makes sense that this is a slow build up to his inevitable outburst, I would guess.
Absolutely, yeah. I'm going to be keeping my ear close to the ground for rumors, I can tell you.
Oh, certainly, yeah.
Close to the ground. And, I mean, if they can translate this level of distinction over to an Emperor's Children army in 40k, I will be ecstatic. Absolutely ecstatic. I'm loving what they're doing with Slaanesh. And the fact that they seem to be almost like, oh, we're squatting Slaanesh, are we? Okay. Get a load of this.
It's almost like a big fuck you to them,
There's
which is kind of
a
funny.
quality to that. You know, there is that element to it, definitely. Definitely. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, Sigvald was the big one. They saved him for the end, and there's a reason why. He is magnificent, guys. If you haven't seen this miniature yet, go and check it out. He's just... and not on another level, you know? He's just on another... In fact, Adam said something really interesting recently, which is, I think, definitely the way they're going. He was saying, do you think that, like, since AOS has always suffered from a lack of character models and character entries in a lot of the armies, barring, like, the big ones like Archaon and Nagash, do you think they're trying to introduce more characters into it? And I think that's true. I do think that's true.
I think at one point they did try and introduce more with the Champions of Chaos book, but I guess it never really took off.
No, I didn't. It's nice to see, isn't it? And also the fact that they're bringing back these old characters, you know? I wonder how far back and how deep they're going to potentially go.
I think at the least they'll bring back ones that they can logically bring back.
Yeah,
you know, ones related to Chaos you can do.
Oh, Chaos is easy. Undead, easy peasy.
Same for Skaven.
Undead,
and like you say, Undead is easy as well.
Easy peasy. Yeah. I mean, you know, and there's so much potential there. Maybe they could bring back some of the Von Carsteins, you know, like Vlad and Isabella.
Well, wasn't there a rumor that Vlad had been brought back as a Stormcast? Was that just a rumor?
No, there's a kind of... I can't remember who it is, but there's a character who... It looks like potentially he might be Vlad von Carstein.
That's cool.
But we don't know. It's never been like
it's
officially.
Sad because I really like Vlad. I like him more
I
than
do too.
I like him more than Manfred, but I kind of prefer him to be a Stormcast so he could fight against Manfred.
I think
since
it
they've
actually
always had a little bit of a bickering thing between the two of them.
With Vlad, it fits better because he actually still has a bit of nobility about him. You know, he's not a bad guy, Vlad von Carstein. And I think he fits more on the side of Order, to be honest, than he does on the side of the Undead. So I'd love to see a Stormcast version of him. I'd like to see him as the master of his own chamber, personally.
That'd be fun.
That has kind of like an intermingling of some of the Von Carstein, like the classic Von Carstein imagery, and the Stormcast.
What's the Storm... I think Adam would be better at this because he knows, I think, more than either of us. But there is one of the Stormcast things which is very kind of death related and they're very grim.
Yeah, they're based in Sheesh. I can't remember what they're called, but yes,
they're the black coloured ones, aren't they?
That's right.
Coloured
yeah,
in black armor.
They're very morbid.
They are.
They're very sort of like, you know, their imagery is all bones and skulls and things like
That's
that.
Right.
Yeah. I can't remember what they're called specifically, but yes, they do exist. They are out there.
Yeah. So you could slot him in there or Cetra, or one of those two. Because again, I heard Cetra was apparently a Stormcast as well, which would again make sense to have him as a Stormcast to fight against Nagash.
Certainly. Well, Cetra hates Nagash. His whole motivation is
pissed with him.
Yeah, his total hatred of Nagash. Yeah,
it's justified.
I mean, on the Nurgle side, there's things like Valnir the Reaper from ages and ages ago. They could easily bring him back. You know, the one I've always wanted them to bring back for Zeech, and it's difficult because he was blown apart at the end of the end times. Egrim van Horstman, the Zeech, he's the Zeech sorcerer who used to ride around on the back of a big two-headed chaos dragon called Bowdross.
Oh, I think I remember that.
Beautiful miniature. At the end times, he tried to absorb, you know, the winds of magic that were floating around. He tried to absorb the wind of light, the one that's now manifested in Teclis and Tyrion.
Okay.
He tried to absorb it into himself and ended up
Did it go well?
No. No. He was obliterated. Blown apart by it. But it's Zeech and it's chaos. They could bring him back. As I say, Sigvald was eaten by a troll. and digested, so they brought him back, so there's no reason why not.
Who was the fabled flesh eater who started the flesh eater courts? What's its name?
Yes, the
He's referenced, but I don't.
what's
Was he
his
given
name?
a name?
Yes, he's got. Yeah, he's the.
But it's more of a title, isn't it? It's not a name.
His name is. Oh no, I used to know his name because he was spoken about in the old, the old Vampire Counts books.
Oh right, okay,
He was actually
yeah.
a character in those books. What is his name now? The original Flesh Eater. I can't remember his name. It's gone.
See, in some ways, in my sick ways, I was really hoping that could be Leon Leonker.
Oh no,
King
it's
of
definitely
Bretonia.
that would be great fun, but it's not him. It's definitely
Bring him
not
back
him.
as the King of the Flesh Eaters.
Oh, what is his name? It's something Nesh. It's something like Olga Nesh or something like that. And he is basically the first of the Flesh Eater courts. He's basically the vampire that devolved, that became the first of the Flesh Eater courts.
That's right.
I can't remember his name off the top of my head. The one who basically bestowed the curse to all the others.
It'd be fun for maybe the Ideneth Deepkin to get what's his name, Captain Noctilus or something like that.
That's right. Yeah.
Maybe bring him back and bring him living, and he could be leading the Ideneth Deepkin.
That'd be fun. Another army I really like actually in AOS. The Ideneth are great, beautiful miniatures.
They got good minis. Yeah.
Stunning miniatures. Great background as well. Great background.
It's weird because I don't hear anyone really ever talk about the Ideneth Deepkin.
No, which is a shame because they're great. They're really, really nice. I love them to bits, But then again, I like most of the AOS armies now. I've got to say they're really. I think AOS is killing it. I think they are killing it compared to what the old world was. Count me in,
It's very different though. If you don't like your high fantasy, then it's not going to be for you, obviously.
Oh no, I mean the way we've always described it on this show is that it's like Roger Dean, it's prog rock album cover stuff.
Yeah.
Whereas the old Hammer, the old fantasy stuff was more Lord of the Rings, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's that kind of fantasy. It's more staid, I suppose. It's more prescribed fantasy.
Yeah.
Which, if you like that stuff, well, I mean, they are going back to that, aren't they?
In a sense,
they
kind of hinted that they were going to show something about that, but
they definitely are going back to that. They're actually reintroducing.
No, I mean in the live stream, I thought they hinted that they were going to show something on that live stream. But they never did.
On the live stream. Oh, this time round.
Yeah.
Oh God, no, they didn't.
No.
But it is coming. It is coming.
Oh, yeah.
They are actually going back to the old world, which I won't probably. It's not. I'm not that interested, to be honest. I like what's going on now. I like the battles of gods and the grand metaphysics and the sheer weirdness of the realms. I love it to bits. I mean, I'm reading the Broken Realms Marathai book at the moment.
Oh yes.
Oh, that's essential. That is essential. If you like AOS, gotta read it because it's stuff happens. Stuff happens. I want to discuss it more with Adam when he comes on because Adam loved it. Adam's gone nuts with it, and I can see why. I can so see why. This book, it's another game changer. Yeah.
Ah, that's good.
It's another game changer. So, yeah, get out and read it. I'm struggling not to spoil it. I'm struggling not to spoil it, but let's just say something happens at the end of the book that has been teased as going to happen since basically the beginning of Age of Sigmar.
Oh, cool. Okay. A big thing then.
Big. Huge. Massive. One of those things that upends the metaphysics of the universe, like the Necroquake, yeah?
Yeah.
This is the equivalent of it.
Ah, okay, cool.
Big stuff going on here. Which I will discuss when Adam comes back, because I want to discuss it with Adam, because I'm sure he wants to talk about it too.
Oh, I'm sure, definitely.
I'm sure he does. But with that, Andy, I think I think that's it, isn't it? There's nothing else?
The only other thing was that the new DLC for Total War Warhammer 2 was announced as well, finally. It's been a long time since they've had a DLC update. And they announced it as going to be the Twisted and the Twilight. That's what this new one is.
Right, okay, interesting.
So obviously it's two new legendary lords. Let me pull up the page so I can go for it. The thing. Let me tell you the thing.
Yeah.
It's an update for the Wood Elves and another update for the Skaven. The Skaven seem to be loved by CA at the moment.
All right.
And they're already really ridiculously strong and have so much versatility to them.
Oh, okay.
The Wood Elves kind of needed it because they haven't had an update since they were originally added into Total Warhammer 1.
Mm-hmm.
So their new legendary lord is the Sisters of Twilight.
Right.
Are you aware of them?
No.
Divided into siblings by the Weave, Nasetara and Aharna are two sides of the same coin. They work together in the service of Queen Alariel, marshalling the woodland warriors at her command, and cannot be slain unless both fall in battle. The Twilight Sisters must prepare the glade for Alariel's arrival.
Oh, okay. That's interesting.
So that sounds like I have no idea how that's going to work, but that sounds like you're going to have two legendary lords at once that will work together.
That you have to kill. You have to kill both of them somehow at the same time.
So it sounds like a really interesting game mechanic for them, potentially.
Yeah, I kind of like that. That.
They're getting a new mechanic called the Forge of the Diath. Diath, the master smith of the anvil, will forge upgrade unique items for the Sisters of Twilight. These items can be crafted through incidents, dilemmas, which will appear throughout the course of the campaign. Then there are the new units, which are Alariel.
So you've actually got Alariel. Interesting.
Yeah, she's going to be a hero unit, so not a legendary lord, but a hero, which I was kind of surprised by.
Well, Alariel back in the day, she wasn't the be all and end all that she is now. You know, she wasn't. No, she wasn't like the goddess of life back then. She was kind of like there were two. There was her, and there was I can't remember what he was called. The big green dude who was based on Herne the Hunter from actual mythology, who was like the actual Orion. That's right, Orion. Yeah,
he's the legendary lord.
Yeah, he was like the big wood elf character. Yeah. And Alariel was just this. She was like a support unit, like a buffing unit more than anything.
Right.
Very ugly mini as well.
That's what she'll. The only description for her is she's a powerful spellcaster. More than capable in melee combat. They're also adding spell weavers, which are going to be a spellcaster lord who can be recruited to wield laws of magic, which are life, beast, shadow, dark, and high magics. Okay. So not as good as the high elves archmages, which can have basically everything apart from vampire, I think.
Nobody would
like one of the best.
You know, nobody would be good as the high elf magic users because they are like the magic users of the setting. Really, you know,
Tyrael got a buff, so he's stupidly powerful now.
Yeah.
They're also getting Zotes.
Oh, okay, now that's interesting.
Yeah, they're described as powerful, monstrous beasts who can access the bound lore of life spells, so they'll be able to cast spells as well, which sounds pretty good.
Interesting.
The Great Stag Knights, which are heavy wood elf cavalry used to penetrate infantry, lands, and decimate light cavalry. And the Blade Singers, which should be elite sword-wielding war dancers.
I remember the Blade Singers, they were an actual unit.
Yeah, so it's again filling out kind of more of the roster that they were missing. Because the Wood Elves in Total War Warhammer 1 were very much like the Drukhari. They were a glass cannon. They were great range, but if anything got in close...
That's how they used to be, actually. That's how they used to be way back in the actual game. I mean, I'm so glad they became the Sylvaneth. Glad. The Sylvaneth are so much better.
Yeah, visually they're a lot more interesting, I would agree.
The Wood Elves were my most yawn army. Back,
they are the most Tolkien-y army.
Totally, and it's like, bore me to death. Why don't you?
Yeah, like whenever I played as them in Total Warhammer 1, I would always go for there were two paths you could go down. You could pick Orion and you'd have more of the Wood Elf side, or you could pick Durthu and have more of the end side, and I always went to Durthu.
Durthu, Tree Men, that was the only interesting thing. Cool. Only interesting thing back then.
I say that, but I mean their archers are like at the time, were the best archers until
Oh
obviously
yeah.
the high elf stuff came around. So
Oh, and in the game, I mean, in Fantasy Battle, their archers were great.
yeah,
Their
they're
archers were
ridiculously good.
amazing. Just so boring.
Yeah, I could understand
So
that.
boring. But I mean, I
So
love them now.
on the Skaven side,
Mm.
the new Skaven guy is Throt the Unclean.
Yay! Throt's great.
An eternal hunger gnaws at Throt, the master of Mutator of the Klein Mulder. A lifetime of auto experimentation has made him powerful, but vastly enhanced metabolism means he feeds constantly to maintain himself. He's hell-bent on reducing the Wood Elf Queen to a magical pulp, which he will then consume to satiate himself as at long last.
I was going to say, is Throt still rather rotund? Has he got like a bit of a belly on him?
He does have a little bit of a belly. He's also got a like a staff with a like almost a hook on it, like an animal claw, and he's got a little whip.
Yep.
New units for the Skaven will be, oh boy. Let me copy this. I'll let you with your wizard tongue figure out how you want to pronounce this word.
Oh, okay.
Paste this.
Is this one a difficult one to pronounce? Let's have a look.
I don't even want to try it.
Gorich. That's
Gorich.
Gorich.
Do you know of Gorich?
It's ringing a bell. It's ringing a bell. I can't quite picture it.
A former general of Archaon the Everchosen once ignored his commander's orders and was sent to the Hell Pits as punishment. There, Throt transplanted his brain into a body of a rat ogre.
That's great. That's great background. Adam, Adam would love that.
Oh, he's going to be recruitable as Legendary Lord as well?
Right, okay. Interesting. Okay, fair enough.
Packmaster. This hero unit performs a supporting role with AoE and target buffs, summons wolf rats, which are another unit, to the thick of the battle, and is mounted on a brood horror.
Okay.
Brood horror. Wolf rats, as I just mentioned, they've been added to the game where they'll have armor piercing variations and poison variations. Mutant rat ogres, a single large entity monster adept at brawling. So above and beyond the normal rat ogre, there's going to be a bigger rat ogre.
Excellent.
And the last one is they're adding in the brood horror, a huge, fast-moving monster adept at punching through infantry lines. Can also be chosen as a mount for Throt the Unclean and Packmaster heroes.
Yay! Anything with big mutated stitched together monsters is good insofar as I'm concerned. You know, I love to talk about my my more sort of ascended reasons for reading literature and getting involved in stuff like that. But you know what? Give me a good monster and I'm well in.
Oh yeah, hell yeah.
That's my hook. Give me a decent monster and I'm there.
But let me tell you, there is a stupid love for the Skaven in this, and I think it's because they're trying to represent all of the clans.
Right.
Because each time this is the first time Mulder's kind of got a look in. The last time they got a look in, they got a Snitch. And they got in the assassins and all that kind of stuff a bit more fleshed out.
Clan
and before
Skiri,
that, they had Icky Claw, so they were fleshing out the guns and the snipers and all that kind of stuff. So they're doing what they haven't yet done with Chaos, which people have always been suspecting is what Total War Warhammer 3 will kind of be more focused on, kind of fleshing out Chaos, because they're terrible. They are terrible. They're awful. Well, because when they were added in Total War Warhammer 1, they were a day one DLC.
Oh.
But not a fleshed out day one DLC. They were not. They're not good. Nausicaa is a better faction than they are.
Oh, God, that hurts, doesn't it?
Yeah.
God.
Nausicaa's a really fun faction. It's still a kind of a bit on the problem because it was the last DLC before Total War Warhammer 2 came out, so it now feels very old. But man, Chaos is just in a terrible place.
That should never be the case in anything Warhammer related. Chaos should never be in a bad place because it is the arch nemesis, isn't it? You know, it's the big bad guy. It should never be in a bad place ever.
I think it's because Total War Warhammer 2 has been focused so much on the new world, so it's that side of the map. So they've got a lot of they've been flushing out, like I say, all of the Skaven stuff, which is massive. They've been doing all of the Deadlands areas and stuff like that. So it's been busy. I think a lot of the COVID stuff has obviously pushed stuff back dramatically.
Of course.
But thankfully, since the Grom and the Ponch, orcs are now actually really good. So, and they were terrible before as well, which I think I mentioned all those months ago.
Well, at least at least there's potential for them to update everything and to bring it up to standard.
Yeah, by adding in more units and then some more game features and stuff like that, keeps the game alive. It's going to be, if you're wondering, if you're a Total War Warhammer player, the DLC will be available on the 3rd of December, so 11 days from now, since we're recording, and it'll be the usual DLC price of £8. So
brilliant.
And I think for all the stuff you get in this DLC pack,
it's pretty good.
I don't think it's too bad. I mean, I mentioned a lot of new units there and legendary lore to play with and stuff like that. So I think you always get your money's worth.
Oh, don't get me wrong. I love DLC as long as it is adding into and enhancing the game and not just selling you back shit that they've cut out of the main game. You know what I mean?
It's always tricky because it always, like, when you hear of people talk about some of the other previous Total War games, they mention that it's still missing this feature that was in the old games, and I don't know whether they do that deliberately, at least with Total War Warhammer, or whether it felt like a system that didn't make sense, because siege battles are still terrible in the game. Siege battles are gross.
Right.
So maybe that's going to be something they fix with Total Warhammer 3 is what also people are hoping for.
Might be a good idea, might be an idea. Brilliant.
But that's it. That's all the news.
Excellent. Okie dokes, Andy. Guys, thank you so much for listening to us. Adam will be back very soon, and we'll have a chat about Broken Realms and Morathai, I'm sure. Andy, is there anything you'd like to pimp out before we go?
If you want, you can find me on YouTube as Grubber Commander TFW, on Twitter as CCTFW, and on Twitch as CCTFW as well, where I play games and whatnot around 11 o'clock UK time in the evening.
Links below, ladies and gents, links below. For myself, same as usual, you can find me knocking about Exaggerated Elegy on YouTube, Let's Plays, reviews, all sorts of things, articles, videos, podcasts, all sorts of stuff going on. If you want to buy my published fiction, you can find links to it over at strangeplaygrounds.com. There are now 3 short story collections over there, with a 4th coming.
Very good.
Yeah, a 4th coming once all COVID-related chicanery has settled down. And if you fancy a chat, you can come and find me over at Enigmatic Elegy on Twitter. And I think that's it. Andy, thanks so much for coming and chatting.
No worries.
It's been,
Thank you for bringing me on again.
No, it's a pleasure. Always a pleasure. It's been great fun. And until next time, guys, bye-bye.
Bye.